London MPs have called for Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson to be fired after he threw himself back into the Brexit debate with a newspaper article that was seen as undercutting Prime Minister Theresa May days before she is set to refresh her own strategy for the split. Writing in the Daily Telegraph a day after a failed bomb attack in London, the figurehead of last year's campaign to leave the European Union outlined what he called a glorious vision for the UK outside of the bloc, prompting criticism he is undermining May and possibly reviving his own leadership ambitions. Home Secretary Amber Rudd described it as backseat driving. It puts Theresa May in an impossible position. I can't understand why she hasn't fired him, Vince Cable, leader of the opposition Liberal Democrats, said on the BBC. He has a completely and utterly different view of what Brexit means from the rest of the cabinet, he said, adding that the civil war in May's government will hamper talks with the EU. Unidentified MPs within May's Conservative Party were cited by newspapers as demanding Johnson's sacking for a move seen as a bid to replace her. Ruth Davidson, the party's Scotland leader, tweeted that on the day of a terror attack where Britons were maimed, just hours after the threat level is raised, our only thoughts should be on service. First Secretary of State Damien Green, in effect May's deputy, said Johnson will not lose his job over his intervention or its timing. He insisted May's government is united in its determination to deliver Brexit. No, he isn't, Green said when asked about a possible Johnson dismissal. The reason is that he, like the rest of the cabinet, like the Prime Minister, is all about wanting to get the best deal for the British people. Johnson argued that the UK should not pay to access Europe's single market for goods and services after Brexit, countering an idea suggested as possible by Chancellor of the Exchequer Philip Hammond and Brexit Secretary David Davis. He also revived the much-criticised claim that by leaving Britain will free up as much as £350 million, $600 million a week to spend on healthcare. David Norgrove, chairman of the UK Statistics Authority, wrote to Johnson on Sunday to say he was disappointed that he had repeated the £350 million figure. This confuses gross and net contributions, Norgrove wrote. It is a clear misuse of official statistics. Britain's Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson arrives at Downing Street in London, following the terrorist attack at Parsons Green Underground Station in London. Photo P.A. Johnson's article is seen by some as a public attempt to shape May's thinking a week before she speaks in Florence, Italy. Amid speculation she will update her approach to the divorce by seeking a post-Brexit transitional period. Johnson didn't mention such a phase. In a Twitter posting Saturday, Johnson declared looking forward to PM's Florence speech. All behind Theresa for a glorious Brexit. British Prime Minister Theresa May will refresh her strategy for Britain's exit from the EU. Photo app. His comments also could lay the groundwork for a possible bid to lead the Conservative Party 3 months after it lost its parliamentary majority in an election called by May. The Tories hold their annual conference October 1 with May's authority sapped by the botched election. Johnson led the Leave campaign into the June 2016 referendum and for a time was the frontrunner to succeed David Cameron as Prime Minister. He decided against standing as a candidate after a public attack on his abilities by fellow lawmaker and one-time supporter Michael Gove. Amber Rudd, UK Home Secretary, says Boris Johnson is backseat driving on Brexit. Photo Bloomberg. He instead joined May's cabinet, from where HES tended to take harder and more optimistic lines than her on Brexit. He said earlier this year that EU officials could go whistle if they expected the UK to pay a large financial settlement. He subsequently conceded some money would be paid. Last October he declared Britain's approach to the Brexit negotiations was having our cake and eating it. Johnson's article didn't offer solutions to the main sticking points in the Brexit negotiations, namely how to deal with citizens' rights, Northern Ireland's border with Ireland, and the financial settlement. Officials in the EU say failure to break the current deadlock on those topics mean they are unlikely to back the start of trade talks next month as once hoped. They are looking to May's speech to provide some clarity, especially on money. Boris Johnson has given the infamous Brexit bus fresh impetus. Photo Bloomberg. It would be very nice if we could get a clear message on where the British are on their financial obligations with the EU, Danish Finance Minister Anders Samuelsen said in an interview in Copenhagen on Friday. The more concrete the message she gives, the better. Bloomberg.